Well, good evening. I'm your host, Robert Wilson, with Cowboy Wisdom Podcast. Tonight's podcast is why my inner dialogue is inherited soundtracks. Your inner dialogue is inherited because it was sculpted before you had language or understood what was going on. It was etched into your nervous system through ancestral tones, emotional rhythms, emotional snapshots, nervous system, and survival choreography. What you call your thoughts often echo their flinches, pauses, and protection patterns, looping as your voice until composted into clarity. Why the world is stuck in yesterday. Outdated narratives still shape modern identity. Societies cling to historical myths, national pride, and inherited ideologies that were designed for past eras. These narratives reinforce rigid roles, cultural expectations of what we should be doing, and they want everybody to live in the railroad tracks of life, in between each rail. We resist expansion by glorifying tradition over innovation. Even when the world evolves, people often anchor their identity in yesterday's story, limiting their abilities to image their present moment like yesterday. And how are we've advanced, we got all the computer technology, everything in space, but yet countries and people can never sit down and communicate away past differences. That is where the inherited images and everything is involved. Systems built for the past still govern the present. That's what I was just talking about. We use war instead of communication. It's the egotistical arrogance and ingrained hierarchy from our ancestors is what controls today. Education, governance, and economics are largely structured around industrial age models that prioritize uniformity, hierarchy, and control. These systems struggle to adapt to fluid, decentralized novelties, reward compliance over innovation. As a result, progress is also often cosmetic, while the core machinery runs on obsolete logic. And one you can really see that is maybe in pharmaceuticals and the way we do business in the world. And it really comes down to why we're stuck in yesterday. Collective memory resists emotional evolution because it's stuck in emotional snapshots, nervous system, the body. It's stuck in yesterday. The emotional tones of the world and how we process grief, conflict, and uncertainty is still shaped by unresolved historical trauma. Without healing, society repeats. Without liberation, societies repeat defensive behaviors. Innovation is filtered through fear, never through vision. Until we confront yesterday's emotional residue of never do and status quo, whoa, the future remains a reenactment, never a here and now innovation. Why AI and computers enhance ancestral survival mode programming and stop emotional, personal, and innovative expansion and maturity. Efficiency reinforces reactive conditioning. AI systems are built to optimize speed, predictability, and control, traits that mirror ancestral survival mode instincts. When people rely on AI to avoid uncertainty, automate decisions, they reinforce reactive, never reflective introspection. That's something I use AI a lot, but I use AI for inner for internal investigation of myself. And as I'm doing this about this inheritance, I see where I had a lot of my parents' ways of life controlling my today. This keeps the nervous system in a low-risk, high-efficiency loop, which mimics ancestral vigilance, yet blocks emotional depth and innovative spontaneity. Pattern recognition applies historical bias. AI learns from data often shaped by centuries of inherited social, cultural, and emotional patterns. As a result, mirrors ancestral hierarchies and prejudice. See, racism is inherited. Poverty consciousness is inherited. A lot of things we have going on today is all inherited. It rewards conformity over innovation. This feedback loop amplifies inherited programming, making it harder for individuals to break free from outdated norms and evolve emotionally or imaginative or intuitively to design your desired lifestyle. Digital environments bypass somatic awareness. Ancestral survival mode is deeply somatic, rooted in body-based cues like breath, tension, and intuition. AI and digital tools, however, pull attention into abstract, screen-based cognition, disengage users from embodied emotional intelligence. This disconnection stalls personal maturation as people lose touch with the very signals that guide liberation, innovation, and authentic expansion. Why the world is stuck in the illusion of progress. Technical advancement masks emotional stagnation. While society races ahead with innovation, AI, space travel, biotech, it often neglects the emotional and rational maturity needed to weld these tools wisely. The illusion of wise arises when efficiency is mistaken for wisdom, connectivity replaces genuine connection, progress feels real, yet without inner evolution. It's just faster repetition of old patterns. Inherited systems reinforce outdated values. Many institutions, education, politics, and economics are built on ancestral frameworks that prioritize control, competition, and conformity. When even rebranded as modern, they reward obedience over innovation and intuition. Sustain inequality under the guise of mediocrity. This creates a loop where surface change hides structural sameness, keeping the illusion alive. Collective amnesia blocks deep reflection. The pace of modern life discourages introspection. Without pausing to examine inherited beliefs, trauma, and cultural scripts, societies repeat historical mistakes with new branding. Confuse the novelty with transformation. True progress requires recalling, reckoning, and re-imaging, not just upgrading. And see, we don't want to re-image; we want to image the now, the outcome, and never just upgrade. Why the world is only stuck in ancestor DNA nervous systems that manipulate your life, my life today. Inherited survival codes still run the show. Ancestral DNA carries survival adaptations like hypervigilance, emotional suppression, or tribal loyalty that were once essential in harsh environments. Today, these same codes trigger overreactions to mere stress, fuel unconscious bias, and fear-based decision. Because they're embedded in the nervous system, they operate automatically, shaping global behavior without conscious awareness. Unresolved generational trauma echoes through society. Trauma is never just personal, it's transgenerational. Wars, oppression, famine, and displacement leave epigenetic marks that alter stress responses and emotional regulation. These inherited imprints influence leadership styles social norms, and conflict patterns, perpetuate cycles of anxiety, aggression, and avoidance. Without recognizing these echoes, society repeats history under the illusion of progress. Cultural scripts reinforce ancestral programming. From family traditions to national ideologies, cultural systems often mirror ancestral nervous system patterns, rewarding conformity, suppressing emotion, or glorifying struggles. These scripts shape education, religion, and governance, keep individuals and institutions locked in inherited behaviors until these patterns are consciously questioned. The world remains entranced by its own ancestral program. I witnessed that in my life, and I've really opened up to it. But one thing people open up to understand and embody, who is actually controlling and manipulating the world, will awaken you to a lot of this. Why everything from the womb to 5 years old is imprinted without without any cognitive recognition from you. Subconscious encoding dominates early development. Before age 5, the brain operates primarily in theta and delta wave states, which are associated with deep sleep and subconscious processing. This means children absorb emotional tones, environmental rhythms, and rational patterns without conscious filtering. See, we have so much in our subconscious mind that has never been conscious filtered, but it's represented in the subconscious. But when something in the physical world activates it, it's here and now, and we have zero clue where it comes from. These impressions form the implicit memory system, which influences lifelong behavior, attachment styles, and emotional responses, even if the child or you or me can never recall them. Sensory and emotional imprints precede language. In the womb, in the early years, the brain prioritizes sensory integration, and emotional attunement over logical reasoning. For example, a fetus responds to maternal stress, hormones, voice tone, and heartbeat rhythm. Infants internalize facial expressions, touch, and voice cadence long before they understand words. These early emotional and sensory experiences become nonverbal templates for interpreting the world. And I'm going to be honest, since I really started this inherited, I've had a lot of awakenings and things brought up from my parents that I do today. And so that's one thing it's about rising. Neuroplasticity locks in early patterns. The brain plasticity is at its peak during this period, meaning it rapidly forms and strengthens neural pathways based on repeated exposure. Because there's minimal cognitive resistance or critical thinking, repeated emotional behavior patterns, whether nurturing or neglectful, become default operating modes. These imprints shape how a child will later respond to stress and form relationships and even preserve safety or danger. Why inherited family history unknowingly manipulates people here and now. Unconscious loyalty to ancestral patterns. People often carry out behaviors rooted in family history out of unconscious loyalty. Even when those patterns no longer serve them. For example, repeating cycles of scarcity, conflict, or silence, choosing relationships or careers that mirror ancestral struggles. This loyalty is never deliberate, it's a deep seated emotional inheritance that shapes choices without awareness. Inherited belief systems shape decision, filters, family history, broadcast core beliefs about safety, success, love, and identity. These beliefs act as invisible filters that manipulate. What people pursue or avoid is how they interpret others. What people pursue or avoid is how people interpret others' actions. Even when outdated or limiting, these inherited mental models frame reality, often overriding logic or personal desire. Emotional echoes trigger present day reaction, unresolved emotional experiences from previous generations, like trauma, grief, or shame, can echo through descendants via epigenetic imprinting and behavior modeling. This can lead to overreactions to mirror stressors. Persistent guilt, fear, or anxiety with no clear origin. These emotional echoes manipulate present day behavior by activating inherited response to situations that feel familiar but are never consciously understood. Why before age 5 is everything before age 5 is inherited and to participate and facilitate people's daily lives today without cognition. Inherited emotional templates drive automatic responses. Before age 5, children absorb emotional patterns like how to react to stress, joy, or conflict, mostly from caregivers. These patterns are often inherited through both genetic predispositions, behavior modeling. As a result, as adults, people unconsciously mirror their parents' tone in arguments and react with similar levels of anxiety or calm in stressful situations. These inherited emotional reflexes guide daily interactions without deliberate thought. Subconscious conditioning becomes behavior defaults as early experiences are stored in implicit memory systems, which operates beneath conscious awareness. This means habits, preferences, and social cues learned from age 5 become automatic scripts. People may choose partners, careers, or routines that echo early family dynamics. So, like in your married life or relationship, how does it mirror your parents? Mine did. It really did. And without realizing the connection, these imprints quietly steer behavior, often mistaken for instinct or personality. That was big time when I was married a long 100 years ago. Proverbial imprints shape worldwide safety and perceptions. Before language develops, children internalize nonverbal cues, facial expression, tone of voice, and physical presence. These cues from the foundation of trust, fear, and attachment styles, how safe or threatening the world feels as adults. These proverbial imprints influence how people interpret others' intentions and manage boundaries and navigate relationships, all without conscious reasoning or recollection. What is epigenetic imprinting? Epigenetic imprinting, also known as genomic imprinting, is a fascinating biological process where certain genes are selectively silenced depending on whether they're inherited from mother or father. And what it really is two working copies of each gene, one from each parent. With imprinted genes, only one copy is active, while the other one is epigenetically silenced. Why my inner dialogue is inherited from soundtracks for from my nervous system, emotional snapshot, parent programming, ancestral survival mode programming, and social obedience. Your inner dialogue is a broadcast of ancestral bracing, never sovereign choice or innovation. Before you ever sculpted a thought, your breath rehearsed protection. The tone and posture of your parents become the rhythm your nervous system loops. Emotional snapshots etched in muscle memory become your internal narrator. You never invent the voice, you absorbed it through proximity. Their flinches become your phrases, their hesitation become your punctuation. Parent programming sculpted your self talk to perform safety, never sovereignty. You inherited their pauses, their bracing, their need to explain. You looped their protection patterns without knowing they were never yours. Ancestral survival mode strategies echo as your inner commentary. You didn't embed the fear, you inherited the choreography. Your inner voice rehearses their alarms, never their clarity. Socialized obedience taught your inner voice to brace before brilliance. You were trained to rehearse approval. That was for me. I was trained. Never pulse originality. The dialogue loops compliance before innovation, ingenuity, and intuition. Your nervous system plays inherited soundtracks beneath awareness. What you call thinking is often ancestral rhythms of what went on before. What you call intuition is often detuned obedience. You never choose the script, you dance the choreography. Energetic liberation composts the archive so your voice erupts from breathline brilliance, never legacy logic. Why, why my inner dialogue was inherited from my parents. Your nervous system rehearsed their emotion. You rehearsed your parents' emotional rhythms before you had words. You absorbed their tone, tension, and timing through proximity. Their sighs become your pauses. Their flinches become your reflexes. What you call inner dialogue often loops their choreography, never their clarity. Their survival mode scripts become your internal soundtracks. How is the world survival mode soundtracks become the survival mode scripts become your internal dialogue? Parents pass down more than advice; they transmit emotional architecture and snapshots. Their doubts, worries, and coping rituals echo as your self talk disguised as maturity until composted into sovereignty. You inherited their bracing as a baseline, never brilliance. Their inner dialogue was shaped by their terrain, scarcity, obedience, legacy, logic, whatever that is. You never choose their voice, but it loops in your mind until detuned by breathline presence and maverick ignition. Why I inherited from the way I react to my daily life from parents, daily encounters, and outside sources. You absorb their reaction through repetition, never reflection. Your parents' daily encounters, stress, praise, conflict, routine, looped as emotional choreography. You rehearsed their posture, tone, timing before you sculpted thought. Their rhythm became your reflexes. Outside sources echoed their bracing, reinforcing the loop. Media, culture, and community amplified the same survival mode scripts your parents performed. You inherited everything from your parents, not just their reaction, but the world's applause for hesitation, caution, and control. You embodied their coping rituals as your baseline. Their way of handling tension, joy, and uncertainty become your emotional architecture. You never choose the rhythm, you inherited the choreography, mistaken legacy logic for sovereign response. Why speaking patterns are inherited. Neurological wiring and both vocal learning. Children inherit neurological frameworks that influence how they process sound, rhythm, and speech. These inherited traits affect auditory sensitivity. Some people naturally pick up pitch, tone, and cadence more easily. Motor control of speech organs, genetics shape how precisely we control lips, tongue, and vocal cords. These biological foundations make it easier to mimic the speech patterns of close relatives, especially during early development. Special mirroring, familiar echo chambers from intimate infancy, we mirror the speech we hear most often, especially from parents or caregivers. Over time, this creates accent and dialect community, regional and familial familiar accents persist across generation. Phraseology and rhythm, common expression, pauses, and intonations become habitual. Even subtle quirks like sarcasm, timing, or storytelling style can be passed down through repeated exposure. Cognitive framing and cultural scripts, inherited speaking patterns, aren't just sound, they reflect inherited ways of thinking. Families often share cognitive schemes, how we structure ideas and arguments. Cultural scripts, preferred ways of expressing emotion, emotional snapshot, authority, or humor. This means that speech reflects not just biology or mimicries, yet shared mental models through generation. Why mannerisms are inherited from ancestors, parents, and nervous system. Mannerisms are emotional choreography passed down through proximity, never permission. You absorbed ancestral gestures, postures, and micro reactions. Before you had language, their sighs became your pauses. Their flinches became your reflexes. You never chose the mannerism, you rehearsed them. How do you rehearse your parents' life without realizing it? Through daily exposure. Your nervous system loops inherited rhythms and identity. The way you tilt your head, shift your stance, or respond to tension often echoes ancestral survival scripts. These are never quirks, they're encoded reflexes scripted by lineage and reinforced by repetition. Legacy logic disguised as ancestral bracing as personality. Parents modeled emotional posture shaped by their terrain, scarcity, control, and socialized obedience. You inherited their choreography, never their clarity. Until composted, mannerisms loop as self-expression while muting sovereign ignition. Why reaction and responses are inherited. Genetic blueprints for emotional reactivity. Our genes influence how reactive we are to stimuli, whether we're quick to anger or prone to anxiety or calm under pressure. These traits are shaped by neurochemical balances like serotonin and dopamine. Temperament types pass down through generations, so when a parent flinches at loud noises or freezes under stress, their child may inherit a similar baseline for emotional response. Epigenetic imprinting from ancestral stress beyond DNA. Epigenetics show that traumatic and stressful experiences can leave chemical marks on the genes that affect how future generations respond to threats. For example, children of war survivals may show heightened vigilance or startled responses. These inherited patterns never just are never just psychological, they're biological, encoded survival strategies. Behavioral modeling in early development from infancy, we absorb how our caregivers react to the world. This includes facial expressions, tone, body, language during conflict or joy. Coping strategies like avoidance, confrontation, or humor, even even not they may not be genetically inherited. These responses become second nature through repetition. While admitting I embody my parents' and ancestors' nervous system, uh, my ancestor DNA liberates me from my ancestral history. Awareness transforms inheritance into choice. By acknowledging that your nervous system carries ancestral imprints, you rise from unconscious repetition to conscious recognition. This awareness breaks the illusion that your reactions are purely personal or random, gives you the power and the prowess to interrupt inherited cycles, choose fresh responses. Liberation begins when you realize you're never trapped. You're entrusted with the ability to evolve and to rise. Embodiment unlocks the power to now wire. When you admit you embody ancestral wiring, you gain access to a root system of your emotional and behavioral patterns. This allows you to use somatic tools, mindfulness and therapy, a featureless mind, and therapy to now pattern your nervous system, release inherited trauma, reinforce resilience rather than being a passive carrier of history. You become an active architect of liberation. Integration ends the cycle of repetition. Liberation never comes from rejecting your ancestry, it comes from integrating it. By owning your embodied inheritance, you honor the survival strategies that got your lineage this far. Free yourself from blindly reacting their unresolved pain. This integration creates space for authentic sovereignhood, where your life is informed by history is no longer is dictated by it. And this is something that I really awakened to when you started admitting to you that you encompass your parents and your ancestors. Things just start coming up for you to investigate. You never want to get mad at it. You want to take it from the how that there is strength and wisdom in there, and you want to gather up the strength, but you want to question your way and listen to the wisdom within in your life. Because no matter what, them ancestors, they had lots and lots of wisdom. Thank you and good night.